I had just wrapped up a job out in Lampasa, Texas, a roofing project for one of the school districts, and I was driving back home toward Killeen. It was mid-August, so hot you'd think the devil himself was running a sauna in my car. Texas summers are basically Mars with a bad attitude. That night, the heat was so over the top I swear my shirt was glued to the seat, and the steering wheel felt like it had just come out of an oven, so naturally I rolled up all the windows and blasted the AC like I was trying to freeze time. It was already late, pushing midnight, and I wasn't really in the mood to take the highway home, so I figured I'd cut through the back roads, save myself about 10 minutes. I'd been through those roads a few times, but not often, and definitely not at that hour. Somewhere along that route, I ended up near a little bridge called Maxdale Bridge. When I hit that stretch of road, I knew where I was. The bridge isn't big. It's got this kind of old-school rusted iron style, just wide enough for one car. Wood planks underneath your tires creak like they're whispering at you. No lights. Nothing around it but brush and the dark curve of Lampasa's river under it. As soon as I started crossing, my headlights flickered. Not off, just dimmed, like something was draining the power. Then came the weird part. There was this woman standing just off to the right side, near the far end of the bridge. Pale dress, still as a statue. I kept driving closer, and she still didn't move. Her face wasn't visible, like the shadows were working overtime, hiding it too well. I'm thinking, okay, maybe she broke down or something. I kept inching closer. Still no movement. No hand up, no wave, just standing there. Staring, I guess. And the weird thing was, I still couldn't see her face. I passed her slowly, doing my best to get a look. Still couldn't make out her face. It was just blank, hidden. And that felt really strange. I ended up stopping the car maybe 10, 15 feet past her. Not because I was scared. Just couldn't bring myself to drive on without figuring out what was going on. I rolled the window down a little. "Ma'am, you all right?" No answer. Didn't flinch. That's when I noticed something strange. The air inside my car suddenly started to feel too cold. Like, not AC cold. Cold like I'd stepped into a freezer. My windshield started to fog up from the inside. And then I hear a knock on my back window. I whip around. Nobody there. Just the empty back seat and whatever shadow I thought I saw in the rearview mirror for half a second. I turn back to say something to the woman, but she's gone. I'm like, no way. There's absolutely no way she could have just walked off that fast. And even if she tried, there's nowhere to hide. No trees, no cover, just open space. She's just not there anymore. That's when I knew this wasn't right. I hit the gas and flew off that bridge like I had just stolen the car. My headlights stayed dim until I got maybe half a mile out, then suddenly flicked back to normal like nothing ever happened. I didn't tell anyone for a long time. Not because I was scared, really. I think I was just waiting for the right moment to tell it without sounding completely crazy. A few months later, I was at a buddy's cookout when someone brought up Maxdale Bridge. The moment I heard the name, Maxdale Bridge, I froze. My ears locked onto the guy talking. I didn't even know him that well. Hadn't been paying attention to whatever he was saying before that. But now, he had my full attention. He said something like, "That place is cursed." Then he added, "She tries to hitch a ride off the bridge?" I froze. I hadn't told a soul. He kept going. "Yeah, supposedly if you stop your car on the bridge at night, your headlights cut out, and a girl in a white dress shows up behind your vehicle. They say her boyfriend left her out there years ago, some tragic thing. But whatever you do, don't let her in. And whatever you do, don't look away." I just nodded and sipped my drink like it was the first time I was hearing any of it. But deep down, I knew exactly what he was talking about, because I looked away. That was the only time I've ever seen a real ghost in my life. And I hope to God I never see one again. Wasn't funny at all. I used to work night shifts as a temporary caregiver at a senior care facility called Hollenbeck Terrace. It was one of those old buildings that had probably been standing since the early 1900s. Creaky floorboards, yellowing wallpaper, and hallways that always felt too quiet, even when they weren't. The staff mostly kept to themselves. A few of the long-timers warned me about the third floor, though they said it in passing, like they didn't really want to get into it. "You'll feel it," one nurse told me. "Just trust your gut." Anyway, one of my shifts landed me on that exact floor. I remember the smell. Old linens and disinfectant, mixed with something. Stale, like air that hadn't moved in a long time. Most of the residents were asleep, but I had one man under my care, Mr. Talbert. He was in his late 80s, barely responsive. Didn't talk much. Just laid there staring at the ceiling. Around 2:30 a.m., I was doing my rounds, standard rotation, starting from room 201 and working clockwise down the east wing, when I heard a door creak open down the hall. I figured maybe one of the residents had gotten up to use the restroom. Happens now and then, especially with the ones on diuretics. So I walked over, past the linen closet and the medication cart we keep parked by the fire exit at night. But all the doors were closed. Every single one. Then I heard it again. This slow creaking sound, followed by soft footsteps. Not shuffling, the way you'd expect from a patient, but deliberate, careful. I stood still, listening. The lights above me flickered, like they always did when the heating kicked in, but this time it felt different, heavier somehow. I told myself it was nothing, and went back to check on Mr. Talbert. Except now he was sitting up. This man hadn't moved for days, and suddenly he was upright in bed, eyes wide, staring at the doorway behind me. I turned around, and no one was there. When I looked back at him, he whispered something. I leaned in and asked him to repeat it. "She's watching," he said. "She never left." I'll be honest, I felt a chill crawl up my back. I asked him who he was talking about, but he just laid back down and closed his eyes like he never said a word. He passed away later that same week. When I told the charge nurse about it, she just sighed and said, "That floor always does something to people." I don't work at Hollenbeck anymore. I still take night shifts now and then, but never in old buildings like that. Once is enough. By the way, after I stopped working there, I found out that Hollenbeck Terrace used to be a hospital back in the 1930s. I think. Makes sense to me now.
I used to work part-time at a clothing store inside an old outlet mall in Illinois, just outside Joliet. The building had a weird shape and was kind of off the beaten path. Not a lot of foot traffic came through anymore. I was in my early 20s, mostly taking night shifts to help cover my rent. Every now and then, I'd be asked to work a morning shift, but rarely. My manager knew my situation. He was a kind man. The store was called Midwest Styles, and it mostly sold off-brand clothes and shoes at a discount. We had about 2 dozen mannequins, those old fiberglass ones with detachable arms and blank, glossy faces. Some of them didn't even have full features, no mouths, no eyes, just smooth white faces like statues out of a weird art exhibit. There was this one time a few months earlier. I barely even thought about it until later, but I came in to open the store one morning and one of the mannequins was just lying on its back in the middle of the aisle. It wasn't broken or anything, just there. Now, sure, people mess around, customers knock things over, but it was the position that was odd. In the middle of the aisle. Why the middle? That was the part that bothered me. It looked almost deliberate, like someone had laid it down gently, flat on its back, arms by its side. I even joked with my coworker that it looked like it had fainted, right there in the middle of the aisle. She shrugged it off, and so did I. I stood it back up and didn't give it much more thought. Nothing weird happened again for weeks, months even. But for some reason, that moment stuck in the back of my head. And then came that night in December. It was a Wednesday, mid December, freezing outside. Store was dead empty, no customers for the last hour. My coworker had left early because she wasn't feeling well, so I was the only one left to close up. I remember this night because of how quiet it was, but I wasn't exactly in the mood for silence. My birthday was just a couple days away. I had just turned off the overhead music and was folding a stack of hoodies near the back of the store when I heard something fall. It wasn't loud, just a small thud, but it was enough to break the silence. I looked up and saw one of the mannequins had fallen over near the front display. I figured maybe I bumped something and didn't realize it, or maybe there was a draft. But then I remembered the front doors were closed and locked, and there wasn't any airflow in that part of the building. Still, I went over, stood the mannequin back up, checked to make sure the base was steady, and chalked it up to nothing. But as I turned back around to finish up, I noticed another one had moved. I didn't actually see it move, but it had clearly shifted from the way it was supposed to stand. It was easy to tell because all the mannequins near the aisle are meant to face forward toward the aisle, but this one was now turned almost completely around like it had pivoted on its base. I swear I had just walked past it earlier and it wasn't like that. At this point, I'm definitely weirded out, but I'm also tired and just trying to close up. I walk over to it, turn it back to where it was, and tell myself I'm seeing things. I go back to the hoodie table. Fold one, fold two. Then I hear it again. This time it's more like a dragging sound. I look up. Three mannequins had changed positions. They weren't even subtle about it. One was now completely turned toward the changing rooms. Another had an arm raised that I know I didn't pose that way earlier. The third one looked like it had been moved a few inches forward. Now I'm done playing cool. I grab my stuff, head to the back, and start locking up early. But as I pass the register, something catches my eye on the store security monitor. The back camera, the one facing the employee only storage room, was flickering. It was showing one of the mannequins inside the storage room, which made no sense. There weren't any mannequins back there. I stared at the screen for a full 5 seconds. The mannequin was just standing in the middle of the room, facing the camera. Blank white face, no eyes, no expression. Then the feed cut to static. I didn't even finish locking the drawer. I grabbed my keys, slammed the gate closed, and got out of there. I told the manager the next day that I'd had a panic attack. He didn't ask questions, but he did admit something weird. He said he never liked being in that store alone either, and that every once in a while the cleaning staff would complain that the mannequins moved around too much. He kind of laughed it off. I didn't. I quit 2 weeks later.